the moment that you start to set up this solution and you have multiple agents and you orchestrate multiple agents, you need gardening and you need to help to maintaining this team. So you are start to move from not only a team of people, but a team of agents. And how you manage a team of people, you manage a team of agents. You need to give them guardrails, you need to give them information, you need to feed it with the right information to keep it in the loop and making them working in the right way as you want. And keep maintaining infrastructure in a way that is sustainable.
Hi, just a quick one. If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. It really helps us share practical knowledge with more people. And if you want deeper insight, you can also subscribe to our newsletter at digitalconstructionpodcast.com. All right, let's jump in. Hi, Mirco. Welcome to the Digital Construction Podcast.
Hey, Andrea. Thanks for having me.
So today I'm very excited for this episode because it's going to be a different one. We'll find out in a second. But we are sitting down with Mirco Bianchini. He started his career as an architect. Then he became a parametric design guru. I've been knowing him for a few years now. And now he works at AECOM as a senior product manager. He also supports them in finding technical solutions. Mirco is an all-rounded person that understands products, understands architecture, understands software. One of those rare gems that you can't really find in this industry very easily. But before we start this interview with Mirco, I would like to ask you a question I ask everyone. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received in your career?
It's not something that I received directly, but I discover slowly in doing it. Is the tendency is that sometimes you want to accelerate everything. You want to bring immediately a solution that it can disrupt something, that it can prove the value, but I realize that sometimes it's better, to slow down, understanding properly what you are trying to do, understanding what the final users and the final user that is going to use your solution or the workflow that you're going developing, you understand properly what they are, the requirement and the request, and then through discussion, through rethinking multiple times, you realize that potentially the initial solution, it wasn't the real one, that it could bring a real impact. So that is a realization that I got a couple of years ago in the moment that they show me a different process of arriving a solution. So starting to write down a piece of on a paper what I was thinking, what it was the goal of the solution and why. A little bit of the process that Amazon does, the famous with the five papers or 3 papers. I don't remember exactly, but the same process. The fact that you write down what you're looking for, that helps a lot to crystallize the idea that you have in mind.
Yeah, definitely, that's a very useful one. And today we are going to talk about some of the predictions that Mirco has for this industry. This is very interesting because we've all been talking about AI and how this is going to change the world we live in the construction space. And let's start with the first one. And Mirco mentioned to me before that in his view, in his mind, you're all familiar with these models where we have an app store, multiple apps, and he thinks that his first prediction for the industry is that this app store is going to die. Like, it's not going to be with us anymore, with multiple project team trying to log in different point solutions. But before I steal his thunder, Mirco, tell us a little bit more about your first prediction.
So we know the construction industry has many solution and many pointing solution that they try to solve a little things. And I start to think about the fact that with the possibility of agentic solution, and in particular having solution has cloud desktop or codecs, is something that in the long run is going to change the way that we are going to work. So instead of using multiple solutions, we are going to have the possibility of surfacing multiple data and multiple information through one entry point that is going to be this agentic solution. And I found these maybe is a provocation, but also a vision on what it could happen. Start to realize, in particular, because I was just reading an article yesterday where OpenAI proved the fact that in the moment that they introduced Codex, they saw that change, in particularly in spaces like finance, like HR. So all the operational part of a business where this agentic solution can help. And I really think that is where potentially we could have the massive disruption in the construction, or if we don't want to use disruption, a massive change that we could immediately tangible touch right now using agentic in construction instead of just pointing out the possibility of render or modeling or things. We have all this part of operational that we can already looking for.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. And I've been thinking about this prediction for a while because Mirco has been kind enough to share the prediction with me to give me some time to think about that. And yeah, to support this, I've been thinking about some points that can support this idea, some points that can challenge this idea. So to support this idea, I think we can think about the MCP and open agent protocols are really generally lowering the integration barrier. So this technology can actually connect the dots, and that helps a lot. And it's trying to connect data that is already fragmented, and the pain, it's already real. Like we already know that people spend a lot of time trying to find data from one project, from one platform to another. And if people listen to this podcast, they already know that often people complain about how the data is fragmented across different vendors. So this is a real opportunity. And if we develop this new framework, then I feel like the real value will be in the orchestration, not on this orchestration of the data set, because the value will not be sitting anymore on the individual feature, but that the different point solution provide, but will be more around the orchestration of the data. You also mentioned, Mirco, like the concept of the code that becomes like a disposable local unit. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, and is related on the using of this desktop solution where at the moment they give you, I mean, they already bring a lowering of the bars or the possibility of creating and generating code. Now, everyone is capable to create a little automation. And I think that is a really interesting point because in particular in the industry of construction, who is going to create this little automation are people that are SMEs in their domain. And so they really know what they want. That for me is linking nicely on what is happening in technology now, where there are a lot of conversation on the taste. Because in the moment that you lower the bar and you make everyone on the same level of generating something, the difference is literally on the quality that you provide, the new solution, what they call it in particular for tech and product is the taste of the solution that you bring. And but in our construction, in our industry, we are not going to talk about necessarily the taste of the product, a part of a particular conversation where we are developing the product itself, but more in a condition of a workflow or automation that happen on the day to day. Is for me the quality of the SMEs picking what is going to automate and knowing exactly what he wants, and in that way now. With the fact that we can access the generation of code very quickly, it will bring these people it gives to these people in their hands the possibility to generate quick automation where they want. And that for me open another thing, that is, if we are able to understand all these automation, why they happen, we are able to see a pattern that potentially is going to help us to really realize what we have to fix in the workflow. Because generally what's happening is that we layer tools on top of our process, and we don't try to fix, or understanding why the problem is happening. But if we start to capture why we generate all these little automation, maybe we start to really see a pattern of why a process has friction and is inefficient.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And on the other aspect, if you want to think about what can actually stop this process, right? Because these are predictions, of course, and it's very hard to imagine what's going to happen in the future. I think one aspect we'll need to consider is the resistance that these point solution providers will try to bring to avoid, to make sure that they don't get disrupted, right? So these are very large companies, just to name a few, like Autodesk or Procore, like they won't be there sitting just waiting to be disrupted, right? So they will try to find a way to solve this problem for themselves. So, for example, they already own the records, and that's valid, or the record of the past. At the same time, we know that the data that the construction industry produces is really not desktop friendly. So the idea that it's very, very heavy models that are all connected to each other. So I think maybe this could be solved with the evolution of CPUs and computers. Like if they become powerful enough, maybe they can orchestrate everything regardless without using these cloud solutions. But that brings us to the next prediction, the prediction number 2, Mirco. What do you think about the role of collaboration and headcount reduction? So I think the industry, many people in the industry are a bit concerned about what's going to happen, because they wonder, is AI going to take my job? Is the AI going to replace my workflows, and what's going to happen in the future? Do you think that this is going to increase the collaboration between people, or is it going to reduce the collaboration?
I mean, I think we are literally in the condition of rethinking how we could work in adopting this new technology that is AI, but we shouldn't focus only on what is able to bring, but in this rethinking, it can help us to also improve the way that we work. And in particular, as we were saying, in collaborating each other. Also, why? Because now the fact that if we are moving in a more agentic way of working, it means that every one of us is going to open a little bit more the capability of what they are able to do it. And so we start to not only be capable of doing our job, but literally expanding a little bit on, let's say, a product level or, manager level. And in that way, we can start to integrate our work with the work of others. And in that way, we can expand the collaboration. That is a crucial point in construction, because it's still a big problem, the collaboration between teams, between different stakeholders across all the project. So the fact of leveraging this new technology to help break some barriers in the collaboration, and in particular this collaboration, it will happen in the moment that we start to open a little bit more the level of information that we can share, because otherwise the possibility of surfacing multiple information and relating information each other is not going to happen if everyone doesn't agree on the fact that we need to open it. Because if we keep staying close as we are working right now, this collaboration is going to happen, but that it means that also the implementation of AI is not going to work, because AI needs data. On the fact of reduction of people on work, I think it was obviously a trend that he was using it at the beginning, particularly in tech, but also because tech has been massively hit by the fact that they develop code. But in construction, there are so many nuances and different works and different way of working, different aspect of developing a solution where SMEs, so subject matter experts, are necessary in the work, and the fact that they are going to be leveraged and be more effective in what they do with the use of AI doesn't mean that they are going to be reduced, but instead we are going to be, produced in a more efficient way, I hope.
Yeah, and I tend to agree that AI will improve the collaboration between people and parties. If we think about the construction industry, the bottleneck has never been the headcount. Has always been the coordination between the people that are part of the process. So you can speak with anyone in the construction industry, they will say one of the most painful part is how do we coordinate across the different phases of the project, across the different disciplines. I haven't heard too many people saying we have too many people in the business, so we don't have enough people. It's always been related to the coordination. So the fact that we have now AI that can help the collaboration between different disciplines, because now it can explain, AI can help explain complex concepts across different disciplines in a way that everybody can understand. So potentially a consultant, a structural engineer, a fire engineer, or an architect, they could produce a document and ask AI to produce a version that can be understood by a structural engineer, by a mechanical engineer, by basically producing different specs for different parties. I think that would be super powerful and will improve coordination. So in that sense, I think it will really, really help. There is also another aspect, which is the risk aversion that we have in the industry. We need to be conscious of. I think people who work in this industry, they understand that there is risk in using AI. So imagine like a structural engineer decides to use AI to make decisions, or a fire engineer that decides to use AI to design a fire system. The risk in the construction industry is really structural. It's not just cultural. It's related to the fact that if something goes wrong, something really goes wrong, that there is a risk of fatality, there is a collapse of a slab, or a program can completely fail. So I think it will be a matter of finding the right balance between having the expert in the loop that checks what the AI is doing, but uses and leverages the AI to then produce a better output. I think that will be definitely where we are going in the future.
Yeah, I on this point, I think is a little cultural barrier, because in the moment that AI enter in this in the construction space, everyone is start to play with ChatGPT. Everyone knows ChatGPT, but we use it as a tool in the way that we just dump some stuff and we pretend to have exactly the information that we know, but is a generative tool. So every time it will twist it something. And of course, when you tried 2 years ago, is not at the same level of right now. Now it has so many implementation and possibilities that we can control much better the flow. And indeed, now there is this trend in the tech industry that is called the loop, where you start with something start and you have proper step where the agent needs to go through it. And then if there is a gate at some point, if it doesn't pass. So my point is that because this industry is very, in some cases, is very descriptive, but is also very deterministic, you can bring this deterministic aspect as part of the agent and go in loop until you don't find the solution, or you don't have the solution that you deterministic know is correct, because you have that check in a deterministic way. So my point is, if we, as an industry, we stay just at the level of the ChatGPT of 2 years ago, we are not really understanding the powerful of the solution that we could have already now. On the other side, and connecting to the first point, I think I mean, I was very interesting to see the industry jumping in the utilization of AI on that operational side, meaning how we reduce time on all the emails that we have, how we organize all the emails in, in agentic way, in an automatic way, how we can have an agent that is create all the reply for us, and we wake up in the morning, we have already, 10 draft email that we can check and submit. How we record the conversation and have immediately action after that. All these operational aspects, they are going to reduce a lot of time that we spend currently on doing this stuff, and they reduce time of what we, or at least most of the engineers and the architects want to do it, meaning engineers solving problem and doing the project. But I don't know why construction in the first stage just decided to go on the most complicated part that are always, modeling and create the final output.
Yeah, sometimes when you describe this, sometimes I think, is this just simply the nirvana of automation? Like many years ago, the buzzword was automation because the industry works on very thin margins and they try to optimize everything. And I wonder if this is what the automation mission actually wanted to achieve many years ago, basically saying we have these 50 things we need to do for each discipline, and now we actually finally have a way to automate everything or almost everything, but we still need a human being to check. I wonder if, do you have an opinion about that, about these steps forward we're making on the automation side?
I think this is just my opinion. I guess we just focus on what we just focus on the output that the industry produce, and on what the industry is paid. So the industry is paid on producing, drawings, modeling, reports, and these kind of things. So at the end of the day, what we want to try to be more efficient is on the production of that artifact. But the point is, for me, is what become first. Become before on that. The process that it makes you possible to generate of that thing, and all in that process, there are so many steps that are inefficient that we are not taking account. We are just jumping on the final part that, okay, how we make drawings more fast, that we can make it faster, or what is the problem of drawing is making labels or a quote or a dimension. Okay, let's make it automatically in that way. Yes, okay, but what it becomes before of that, how we can capture everything before that makes that automation better, or the process in a way that we incorporate all the information that we need to generate, the drawing in a more capable way. I was listening to a podcast that they were, it was the CEO of Trimbo, I think, or some big in the corporate, and he was saying, we automatize so many aspects of every steps that now they work perfectly. I mean, the automation that we have, we know that it works. It is like if you describe like a soccer team, every players is at the maximum peak of their athleticism and quality of playing, okay? Because our automation now, for every single step, we have a good automation. But the team itself, it doesn't play together. So we have amazing soccer players, or in our case, amazing automation, but they don't play together because we're not looking on the workflow in their entirety. And I think we are doing the same error with AI as well. We are just adding, pointing solution to try to fix something else, something that we already know that we can improve it a little bit more, but we are not looking backwards what it can be adjusted as a full process. Indeed, we know that construction is an efficient industry, and it plays to be inefficient. And so that I think is a conversation that I hope AI is going to open a little bit more to really tackle that inefficiency.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings us to prediction number 3. You mentioned, so when we think about projects are controlled as a list of static lists, but in reality there is lots of different dependencies that form a network. Can you articulate this prediction a little bit more, and how do you think we are going to end now that we have AI?
So I think is interesting on the fact that we keep articulate, managing, organize project in a flat list, or but in particular also how we visualize them, in a waterfall process, in a canvas process, but in reality projects are a bundle of information, are like a graph of information, and that is again come back on the fact that if we are able to mapping properly our processes and understanding the graph of relation, that is where we can start potentially talking about the ontology of every process, and that is where connecting AI is where it starts to be handy, because AI it loves data. That is the other point where again, I hear a lot in the industry, we need clean data, we need a lot of data. We have data. The point is where we start, what kind of data we want, how we transform our data. I personally don't have an answer, because in a sort of way I'm not a data scientist, but I'm thinking, and I believe is a part of a conversation that needs to be expanded through different people and knowledges. But the point is, if you see in the industry, there are already in construction, people on site, they, for example, using Palantir, and they create their ontology, because at the level of internally to them, they know all the process that they have, and they were able to map it, organize in clear data, and given a name with precise fields and properties of what everything it is and how it's connecting together. Okay, that is possible because in a business on site, they know what they need to know, what they need to do. My question is how we can do it in other realities, in an architect office, in an engineer office, or in a big corporate. Maybe there are sub-ontology for teams, and then they grow based on regional needs. But that level of start to understand the way of how we work, and also understand how we can start to capture the data that we need, is a literally a conversation that we need to have. And for me, is not start to looking on the past, is literally just to decide, okay, from tomorrow, I don't know, every time I speak on a project, I record myself. That is start to be a point of a record of data that are usable for a project, for example.
This is the issue with data is so interesting, and I wonder if this is the right time actually we can solve it, because I've been in many conferences, speaking with many people, and everybody says we need the standards. We need to make sure that everybody speaks the same language when it comes down to data. And all of the conferences in construction, they're all the same. People say the same thing over and over and over and over. And after many years, we haven't solved the problem yet. So I wonder if now there is a new entity, more powerful, maybe we call it AI, that can actually rule them all, right? So it doesn't matter how people have built data over many, many years. It doesn't matter if Revit 2020 that is not compatible with Revit 2021, and which is not compatible with ArchiCAD, which is not compatible with lots of other products that we have in this industry. We can maybe this is the right opportunity. This is the right time where we have something that can join everything together, because the data already exists. It's just that the graph has not been created, and we haven't connected the dots. So I wonder if this is the right opportunity for us to connect the dots. And this makes me think about something that seems to be like kind of non-related. Like many years ago, I had a friend that was taking photos like we all do with his iPhone, and I was looking at his camera roll, and it was a mess because lots of different photos in there. And I told him, like, why don't you try to have some sort of logic and structure your camera roll in a way where you can actually understand where the different things are. And many years ago, he said, what's like, this person works in software. A very smart person works in software. And he said, I simply don't care, because I'm pretty sure at some point in the future, somebody will figure out how to stitch everything together and make sense of it. Now, today with an iPhone, you can just say, that you can ask a question, and it will probably be able to find the photo you're looking for directly inside your device. Sometimes it fails, sometimes it's successful, but we are probably moving towards a stage where it doesn't really matter how the data was supposed to be connected. We kind of failed in connecting it, but now there is something that can actually connect the dots, and that's pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, and I mean that it connect a little bit, the technology speaking, this conversation of the MCP, and the first point that we were saying, be capable of surfacing data, in the fact that now we have this translator that is able to connect and aggregate unstructured data. But on the other side, there is always the point where I come back always and say, okay, how we work. Because if we are able to, graphically represent how we work, that is going to, for me, is going to open the conversation of, okay, how we can potentially improve the way that we work. Because now we can also capture, data on the way that we work, and how we can perform better on some step of the way of we work. So the point is starting from something. I believe, just even a small team, it could just start to say, okay, for this project, what we will start to, for example, record our way of deciding on how we define as a structure element. I don't know, something, and we start to accumulate that data and then feed it to an AI in a way that they want to see, to generate potentially that loop that I was mentioning. And so you start to create that automation and loop that every morning you wake up and you have these AI engineers that, is advise you if there were some problem on the change of the process of calculating the system that you were setting up. For me, there are many ways and many possibilities. The point is literally start to see and having this conversation where people, they said, okay, I was starting to collect this type of data in this way. It seems that everyone is just talking about data, but I don't feel proper conversation on the fact that we show how we are capturing this data, and that is also going to open the conversation between different stakeholders, different parties, to open that collaboration. If we are just start to say, keeping saying, we need to have more data, we need to have better data, but no one knows what is the data, what is the starting point of the collaboration, and where we start.
Definitely. And that brings us to prediction number 4, which is about a new role that is emerging, or maybe will emerge in the future, we'll see, which is we call it the internal forward deployed engineering, FDE. Can you tell us a little bit more and how this becomes the HR manager for digital assets?
Yeah, so as you were mentioning in the beginning, the need of start to the fact that we need to start to learn how to orchestrate our agent, and potentially you already do it in your day-to-day with, for little things that you do in your private life, is the same in your day of work. We need people that they know how this technology works, and they help introducing this technology in the work of the engineers, HR, finance, and understand what they need and their need, and try to bring their technical knowledge in support of introducing the technology in the better way of how it can be applied. So and I think is an interesting role, because is totally disconnecting from any type of services or businesses. Is literally a person that has the knowledges of understanding how this technology is evolving and the possibility of this technology, and helping the different department on how introduce it, and working with them on discovering how to apply it.
Yeah, and I think you also in your prediction mentioned that this person becomes like the HR manager, right? So this person is an individual that understands the context, but also orchestrates all of these agents, like if they were graduates in their team. But at the same time, these AI workflows that get built require constant gardening and testing and improvements. Yeah. Can you articulate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, it has there is always this concept of thinking AI like a graduate. I believe is just like someone that needs to learn. And in any case, in the moment that you start to set up this solution and you have multiple agents and you orchestrate multiple agents, you need someone, of course, that, as you were saying, you need to gardening, and you need to help to maintaining these teams. So you start to move from not only a team of people, but a team of agents. And how you manage a team of people, you manage a team of agents. You need to give them guardrails. You need to give them information. You need to feed it with the right information to keep it in the loop and making them working in the right way as you want, and keep maintaining the infrastructure in a way that is sustainable.
It's very interesting, because it looks like so in this world we are talking about the creation of a new role that doesn't exist today, right? So the construction industry is still trying to adjust to the digital roles, and now we are talking about there is somebody else that is coming and trying to perform new things. So that makes me think, are we now creating a new department, or are we now creating a new hierarchy, a new organization chart just to maintain all of these agents? Because of course, they perform like graduates, but at the same time, as you said, there needs to be human beings that provide the guardrail all the time and kind of readjust to make sure that they stay in the right line. And sometimes I also wonder, are we just simply relabeling a team, the BIM team, with something else, because these people already know the industry, or who is the person at the role that is in the best position now to cover for this role?
I personally believe our person that are combined knowledge in the industry and interested in the technology. Of course, need is a little bit of has computational design. I think it was at the beginning, are these sort of connection between technology and the business. But computational design needs to have support from IT. Has these new role that we were discussing needs to have support from people that they know deeply, the topic of AI. Of course, these are implementation people, so they need to combine the two environment and know a little bit of both. they need to be the translator in a sort of way from the people that are very, very technical and the other that are very, very technical in the two different spaces, but are the one that are they enable the possibility of implementing and introducing these solutions. So, I mean, you could see it potentially has an evolution of the computational designers, has I believe computational designers is going to be, in a sort of way democratized to everyone, because initially computational design was primarily described as people that they know to code, how to code, a little bit of automation in particular related to Grasshopper and Dynamo. But then, when you have a coding opportunity, I mean, now that the coding is very easy to obtain, everyone that has that vision of automating something, it can become computational designers, because the computational thinking, the way of thinking in a computational way to have this automation is just a part of the process of, is just part of the person that you want to automate something and making them more efficient using a computational aspect. So I think the creation of a new role is like just a sort of transition to adjust of new possibility. A little bit has the BIM manager it was creating because we introduced BIM.
And do you think that the way the tier 1 companies or tier 2 that are going to do outsourcing is going to change in this world, or is it going to stay the same? Because it's hard to imagine a world where these teams are so productive and now they still need to outsource some work. What do they actually outsource? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends what we are. Is a bit of what we were saying, on all the point before, is how we are going to apply this technology. If it's just to, speed it up, some of the point that we know takes a lot of time, for example, doing drawings, of course, that is not going to be of sources anymore because you are solving that, but not necessarily you solved all the problem of the creation of the drawings has part of the process. We know that drawing creation and drawing reviewing or generation of model, there are specific aspects of the design of a project takes time. But if we tackle that independent problem, maybe you start to not outsourcing that specific solution, but that doesn't mean you improve the way that you're working.
And that brings us to the fifth and last prediction, which is about the architectural flip. So not the architecture from the building point of view, but more like the software architecture point of view. So we know that in the past, until now, I should say, construction companies have been outsourcing part of their workflows to SaaS platforms like Procore, Autodesk, for a different series of reasons. Like there were systems of records, they needed to have systems of workflows to complete their workflows. But what do you think is going to change now in how construction company and SaaS platform are going to interact?
That is a question that it's more like a question, and I'm interesting to see how the market is going to evolve eventually. I keep believe SaaS will stay, and in particular, startups are really necessary for this industry to grow. Understanding how to implement things. I see a big movement on in particular, in that level of integration, push it from from startup. So if there is not a person or a role internally, startup, they can support on that. So bringing new solution, new solution, how to integrate the solution in the business. But at the same level, my provocation is the fact that if you start to have internal people that they automate part of their work, and they don't need eventually a specific point solution provided by a startup or any other product, because they can produce exactly just what they need and not all the framework around the product. It means that potentially we are going to start to reduce the need of these solution that maybe helps to reduce the product fatigue that the construction industry is getting. All these number of pointing solution that we have without really a strong improvement on the process. And again, we come back on the point that potentially start to see patterns, start to see why all these little automation are generated. We are able to understand exactly how to improve the full workflow.
Yeah, it's so interesting because in this world, it looks like we end up with teams, like in construction companies, that like we can call them digital teams or whatever we call them, where they have the context and the knowledge, and they can now develop their solutions that are related to their specific workflows. So this kind of can decouple the way software vendors operate and interact with the construction industry, because now instead of providing specific tools and solutions that are for the construction industry, maybe they only end up providing more generic infrastructure that's very hard to build and maintain. So this already exists. Like if you think about the authentication process, like authentication tools, like every SaaS company is not building a new authentication tools just to make sure that all users are authenticated, right? So they outsource that part, which is generic enough because all the different products need it. But then when we start thinking about when you bring AI into the equation, now you give construction company with digital team the opportunity to develop their own solution that brings the level of abstraction to a different level, where you now have software vendors that they start creating potentially something that is a little bit more abstract, but it's a little bit more generic. It doesn't need to fit into a specific workflow for a specific company. But I also see that this could be the reality for tier 1 companies that can afford digital teams, but maybe it doesn't really work for smaller companies that don't have larger teams. So that's kind of, it's an interesting space that we need to watch. Then also makes me think about the other point you touched before when you said, now we could be living in a world where we have somebody that works for a construction company and orchestrates all of these AI agents that effectively operate like junior engineers, junior architects, junior BIM technicians. And then all of these software companies that in the past have been selling software on a per seat pricing model, this is becoming generally vulnerable for them because, of course, they're not going to charge AI agents a seat. So then that's going to, we are going to see possibly a change in that space as well.
Yeah, that potentially, it can open more the door on APIs, and so the models or API charging on API, or maybe they give you their agent plugged on that, and you pay, of course, the use of the possibility of agent. I'm a strong supporter of platform. I think I wrote about the fact that I believe company, they should build their platform, and that is this horizontal level, as you were saying, generic. Giving all the blocks to make vertical solution as you need, and I want to make just a distinction when I said now everyone can automate. For me, they still at the level of prototype. That for me is the interesting part. We need to recognize that this development is no product, because otherwise are not fully defined product, because otherwise, of course, we move the conversation on another topic that is, but if it's a full product, need a proper development. Is not just you write some code and you don't know what you've wrote, and you don't and doesn't matter. You need also authentication and things. But what I'm talking about are solutions that they stay at that dimension of prototype, that they can use it on one-off on a project, that can be respinned and retweaked on the next project. But if that happens constantly, that it means that in that solution there is a value. And so be able to capture that solution and not necessarily scale it at the level of a product, but understanding why it's happening repeatedly. That is open, the possibility of saying, okay, so if we automate this part every time, we already improve our way of workflow, or we need this data to have always this automation. And that is where you start to work on the workflow and not on the specific solution. I think there are a lot of things that they have a lot of relation and connection. It's just the way of starting, realizing where the technology at the moment it is, and not just thinking that is, the chatbot that you tried 2 years ago. It has a lot of more potential, a lot of more framework around, a lot of more way of tweaking and composing the solution, that it can be pushed on a different level.
This has been a great episode, Mirco. I think I'm very excited to have this conversation with you and sharing opinions, and I feel like we could continue like this forever on this topic. But we are at the end of the episode for today. Probably we'll have another episode at some point in the near future. But if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you? LinkedIn is the best place. I'm quite active there, and they can send me a message, and I'm happy to reply. Perfect. Thank you, Mirco. Thanks for joining us on the Digital Construction Podcast.
Thanks, Andrea. It was very fun. Thank you so much.